Israel is waging a war of extermination, an ethnic cleansing campaign, a full-fledged genocide campaign in North Gaza with complicity from all of the global administrations that are still silent or trying to cover it up or downplay it or ignore it or deny it. We are talking about ethnic cleansing of families, destruction of whole buildings with families inside them, destruction of hospitals, not allowing any civil services to function, killing everyone who tries to assist any human being in North Gaza. And the situation is only getting worse. And despite attempts from certain figures, in particular in hospitals, in the civil service in North Gaza, to speak with people who have influence, with people who have reach, with certain coordinators, nothing is happening to apply pressure on the genocide state and the genocide forces to back down from their ethnic cleansing campaign of extermination. You're talking about a large concentration camp in general in Gaza, but now the fact that they are committing that they are actually implementing an ethnic cleansing campaign in Gaza, and they are asking people to move from one place to another. The big case was in Jabalia. The big massacres were in Jabalia initially, although of course it spread out through all across of Gaza, where they were telling people you need to leave and you need to flee to Beit Lahia only to follow them to Beit Lahia and force them to go somewhere else. The plan of Israel, the ultimate plan from all of this, is to ethnically cleanse completely the northern part of Gaza that is north to the Netzarim line. Now, we still have certain areas that are very densely populated in North Gaza, apart from Jabalia, for example, and Beit Lahia. However, you need to understand the pattern that Israel is operating on, and the fact that they will continue to follow these people from one place to another up until they get rid of all of the population in North Gaza and start the settlement building process and the infrastructure and property process that they are looking to implement in North Gaza on top of the bodies of the innocent civilians massacred in this genocide campaign. They are still facing resistance. However, they are still facing resistance in every part of North Gaza, and we have the Palestinian resistance publishing footage and videos of them targeting all of them. So despite the fact that they are conducting such mass-scale destruction in a barbaric manner, they are still being met with fierce resistance from the resistance movements in North Gaza. However, the situation is catastrophic. It's beyond imagination, and the images and stories that we're hearing on a day-to-day basis, and I try and share some of them, what we can on this platform, on my community tab, are nothing, not 0.001% from what's actually happening. So it's very important to keep highlighting what is happening in the northern part of Gaza and of course all across, and not allow that to be something people get used to. No one should get used to atrocities like that, and action must be taken to stop this genocide entity and everyone supporting it, so that the people can enjoy at least basic human rights in the first part, and hopefully in the long term full equal human rights in accordance to the UN Declaration of Universal Human Rights. This is the first part that I wanted to talk to you about. The second part that I wanted to talk to you about is Lebanon. We've had these intense days between Iran and Israel. Israel carried out this attack on Iran that I will be talking about in a bit, and we haven't heard a lot about Lebanon. However, we are still seeing a lot of stuff happening in Lebanon, and what we're seeing is massive losses coming against the genocide forces. They are suffering tremendous losses. When it comes to Lebanon today, 3 fighters of Hezbollah took down 20 of the genocide forces, killing 3 and wounding 17. And reports say that they fled. That's only one part of over 20 operations coming from Hezbollah on the borders with the occupying entity and with attacks deep into Israeli territories. They also took down a Hermes 900 with a land-to-air missile that, again, they did not specify the details of. So you're talking about, again, another day of massive losses when it comes to Israel. Israel, although they are trying to cover up their losses when it comes to Lebanon, however, those attempts are very limited because at the end of the day, we are seeing footage coming from Hezbollah and from the Lebanese resistance when it comes to these losses. And again, they are not achieving any sort of significant accomplishments when it comes to Lebanon, apart from their usual accomplishments: destruction of civilian buildings, destruction of hospitals, of civil infrastructure, and the massacre of people and innocent civilians. This is what Israel is good at and has been good at. However, when they're faced with true power and resistance, they are cowards as usual, and the timid attack and unsuccessful attack that they had on Iran proves just that. Which leads me to Iran. And yesterday we were talking about the fact that we haven't heard yet about a statement coming from the supreme leader of Iran. Today we had more and more comments coming from Iran about the attack, about the potential response, and a bit of highlight as to what we were to expect if the situation continues as it is, especially coming from the Iranian side, seeing as this attack was conducted by Israel. So we had this article in IRNA about the supreme leader of Iran, Sayyid Ali Khamenei, and his first mention of the Israeli attack against Iran. And in this article, they said the supreme leader made the comment on Sunday, and the comment was, Israeli mischief should neither be magnified nor downplayed. He had this comment on Sunday as he received families of the Iranian military personnel martyred while defending the country's security, known as Martyrs of Security. He said that the Zionist regime exaggerated the aggression it committed against Iran early on Saturday. Their exaggeration is wrong, but downplaying what they did is wrong as well, Ayatollah Khamenei added. He also said that the Israeli regime has miscalculations towards Iran, as it is yet to know the country and its people and understand the level of their power and determination. Quote, we should make them understand all these, end quote, he stressed. The leader also said that officials should make the Zionist regime understand the level of the Iranian nation's power and determination, calling on the officials to do whatever is in the best interest of the country. Ayatollah Khamenei emphasized the importance of preserving the country's security, especially the psychological security of the people, saying that causing fear and doubt in their minds is rejected. Anybody who stands against any act of evil, from robbery to murder, smuggling and spreading rumors, is regarded as the guardian of security, he said. What preserves the security of a country is its national power, the strength of that country being strong in all aspects, strong in science, strong in economy, strong in defense, strong in armaments. These maintain and ensure the security of the country, he said. Whenever Iranian authorities turned away from pursuing tools of power because of adopting wrong policies, the enemy gained dominance over the country, Ayatollah Khamenei noted, citing as examples Iran's weakness during the eras of Qajar and Pahlavi, which led to the occupation of the country in the First and Second World Wars, despite the fact that Tehran had announced its neutrality. The supreme leader also criticized the world, including some governments and the United Nations, for failing to stop what the Zionist regime is doing in Gaza and Lebanon, which he describes as the most brutal war crimes. He said that the regime is violating all rules of war, stressing that the world, all the governments, especially Islamic governments, should stand up against the Zionist regime. It is not the issue of whether to assist the regime or not, Ayatollah Khamenei said, stressing that the least help to the regime is regarded as a great sin. A global coalition must be formed, as well as a political coalition, an economic coalition, and, if necessary, a military coalition against the malicious Zionist regime that is committing the most brutal war crimes today, the leader emphasized. So the statement coming from Sayyid Ayatollah Ali Khamenei doesn't have specific guidance when it comes to the response, and we can understand that by his approach towards the officials of the country. In particular, this sentence here, the leader also said the officials should make the Zionist regime understand the level of the Iranian nation's power and determination, calling on the officials to do whatever is in the best interest of the country. Now, if Sayyid Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is leaving that to the officials of the country, or what the officials of the country say. The officials of the country said that we will be responding. We will be responding in the relevant time, and we will be responding in the right place and when is suitable for us. So they haven't ruled out a lack of well, in many cases you can't say that they outright said or hinted that they will not respond, but the fact that they are saying we will respond in the right time hints that they are leaving a certain gap in the meantime for certain progresses to be made, similar to what they've done in July following the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, when the United States asked them, and this was confirmed by the Iranian president, that don't attack Israel yet. We're having progress when it comes to the ceasefire. If you attack them now, we will have a certain problem. Now, the fact that they are not elaborating too much could mean a couple of things. Number one, saying that we will respond in the right time is putting themselves in the circle of responding. Lack of response from Iran is quite unlikely based on the pattern that we've seen from Iran in the past year when it comes to Israel. Why? Because firstly, their initial response in April and their attack on Israel came as a response to Israeli aggression against one of their embassies / consulates in Syria. So it wasn't on Iranian territory, but they deemed that an attack on Iranian sovereignty. Therefore, they resorted to attacking Israel directly from Iranian territories. And many people, including myself, did not assume that Iran would do such a move, but rather potentially use some of its allied forces in the region to conduct an attack on Israel. Yet they carried out an attack on Israel, the biggest drone attack in history, with many missiles landing in Israel. And then October the 1st came with an unprecedented attack, with the majority of the missiles landing on the genocidal states, bases, and strategic locations that are targeting innocent civilians, and where they launch their attacks from on the innocent civilians in Gaza and in Lebanon. And the fact that Iran is saying that we will respond makes it exceptionally likely that they will respond. They will most likely respond to this attack. However, when that is something that, many people are saying, we could be having a period where they will potentially give and use their lack of a response as leverage, potentially, or they are only saying that and are planning an immediate attack. Because one day after the attack, we heard reports coming from Iraq that they closed their airspace in preparation for an immediate Iranian attack. However, they also can't give their enemies too much information. When will that attack happen? How will that attack happen? We don't know. But in the meantime, we are having certain talks about a ceasefire. Is it another talk? Is it something genuine? Again, based on the pattern, it doesn't appear like anything's going to happen when it comes to a ceasefire. However, we had a new proposal coming from the Egyptian president for a 48-hour ceasefire between Israel and the Palestinian resistance. That would include releasing 4 Israelis in return to releasing an unspecified number of Palestinians, and that would give 10 further days. That would include talks about an ending of the actual war, and Egypt is labeling that as a starter to a potential ceasefire. Hamas, from their side, they said our red lines haven't changed, and of course, from an Israeli perspective, some analysts inside of Israel are saying it would be delusional to think that Hamas positions have changed, although we have people who are delusional, who think that, with the assassination of the martyr Yahya Sinwar, that all of a sudden they can reach a ceasefire, not really knowing and understanding how Hamas operates as a movement and what they are about. Now, will it work? Will it not work? So far, Israel is committing a campaign of ethnic cleansing, of starvation, a genocide. The northern part of Gaza, again, suffering the most, with over 1,000 martyrs in 22 days and people dying because of their wounds. Is there a likelihood to have a certain success? Not very likely. Firstly, Israel is not likely to change anything when it comes to that, unless that is the assumptions that Benjamin Netanyahu is delaying the potential ceasefire to the anticipated arrival of Donald Trump. There is no guarantee that Donald Trump is going to become the president, but there is a likelihood that he will. And if he will, there were reports that he had to deal with Benjamin Netanyahu. Do not reach a ceasefire under the Democrats, reach a ceasefire under me, because I want to end all of the conflict in the region. And I want to end the war of Russia in Ukraine. Therefore, this would give a massive boost and a credibility to Donald Trump, which would be a big favor that Netanyahu would give him. Is that the case? There is likelihood that that is the case. So firstly, Netanyahu and Trump are very, very closely tied. They had a very good coordination. Donald Trump made very massive things in favor of Israel, including recognizing the Golan Heights as Israeli, moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, followed by pressure from the donors of Donald Trump himself. Sheldon Adelson now is a widow. Miriam Adelson give him hundreds of millions of dollars, and these are the same people who fund Benjamin Netanyahu. So there is likelihood that that would happen. Of course, we had a period where Donald Trump faced sour relations with Benjamin Netanyahu, in particular following the elections in 2020, and after Benjamin Netanyahu congratulated Biden immediately in results that Donald Trump himself cast doubt on. We had lots of problems at the time, and Donald Trump did not recognize the elections at the time, and he criticized Benjamin Netanyahu outright. However, they have since, of course, repaired their relations, and Netanyahu might be returning a favor for Donald Trump. But again, that is only a possibility. That is not a guarantee, based on what the genocide state has been doing for the past year. No American consideration stopped them, apart from arguably the level and targets of attacks that Israel conducted when they went on an attack with Iran. Israel did not touch the nuclear power plants. They did not touch the oil facilities. There were reports that they tried to get them, but Iran's air defense systems took them down. However, Israel itself declared that they only targeted military bases inside of Iran. That could well be due to the United States pressure on Israel, and the fact that Israel is isolated as a pariah state, even with many of its allies ditching it when it attacked Iran, and from an ongoing perspective, the longevity of the war and the fact that it's still committing war crimes to this day. The third and final thing I want to talk to you about, we had a massive operation today but we still haven't had elaboration about its nature. A Palestinian citizen of Israel running over 50 Israeli troops who most likely belong to 8,200 squad in Galilot. That's the area that Hezbollah targeted many times, and reports that other movements targeted that area. At least 7 Israel. Some reports say 5, some reports say 1, but we had a couple of reports saying 7 were killed and over 50 wounded. This is a very big escalation coming. However, there is no confirmation that the attack was intended. However, the likelihood of that attack being intended is a massive escalation, especially when it comes to individual operations coming from Israel. Israel worked very hard in the past 2 decades to try and eliminate the risk of individual attacks on it by targeting infrastructures, by its whole campaign in the West Bank. We have massive apartheid in the West Bank, checkpoints everywhere, but it still faced these problems. And Al-Qassam brigades, the armed wing of Hamas, several months back, they promised them that the era of individual operations is coming. And ever since then, we have seen many attacks coming. One of them was the simultaneous attack when Iran conducted its massive operation True Promise 2 against Israel, where we had 2 individuals from the West Bank conducting an operation in central Israel. This is something very worrying. This is a trend that is worrying Israel very much, because you're talking about internal security and people who they don't know where they're coming from, what they're doing, what they're about to do. It's almost impossible to protect themselves from such actions. But again, all of that is happening due to the continued barbarism of the state of Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu is putting everyone at risk, first and foremost Israeli people, and of course the genocide he's committing against the Palestinians, and the security in general to the region and to the whole world that is always being underplayed by mainstream media. You're talking about a genocidal pariah mass terror state supported by the US administration being enabled and doing whatever it can. People inside of Israel, some of them are supporting Netanyahu, the continuation and escalation. Also, however, many on the other side are opposing him heavily and viewing all of the losses, all of the lack of security, all of the devastation that is coming on the country as a result of Netanyahu's policies. Many people are calling him the crime minister, someone who, they wish death on him. When Hezbollah attacked his house, they said, we hope he would have been there. And it just highlights how divided the country has been and still is, despite attempts from Benjamin Netanyahu, by the way, to take down and tone down these escalations after he launched this massive escalation against Lebanon. Because before Lebanon, the momentum of the release, the Israeli prisoners movement inside of Israel was exceptionally high, to a level where we reached record levels when it comes to protests inside of Israel. 800,000 Israelis were in the streets in Tel Aviv and in other parts of the country at one point. You're talking about approximately 8% of the population in total, and the pressure and spotlight was on Benjamin Netanyahu. All of the focus was on him. And how does he shift that? Typical, he will go on another escalation where people can turn their attention and achieve certain things that he would view or show his public as accomplishments, like the assassination of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, and recently the assassination of Yahya Sinwar, and show them, look, we are actually accomplishing certain things. Yes, I haven't brought, the kidnapped, and yeah, there's still risk on Israel. Well, not just risk, they're increasing the level of attacks. Now Hezbollah have the whole northern third of Israel, and you can reach the central part, but the whole top third of north of Israel, you're talking about day-to-day actions and attacks coming from Hezbollah. All of this area is under constant danger, and the general situation in Israel is underplayed again in mainstream media, whether when it comes to the societal problems, the political problems, the military problems, and the economic problems, and the levels of people leaving the country for good, especially the areas that were affected. But it's not just limited to the areas that were affected.